Hello and welcome to my first DIY video. This video is specifically about my BTR185 bow thruster. Got a stern thruster as well of the same type. I spent so many hours repairing this thing that I thought it might be useful to share some of my experiences. Now the BTR185 is a retractable bow thruster or stern thruster. I think that's what the BTR stands for. BT for bow thruster and R for retractable. I'm not sure about that though. 185 is the diameter of the GRP pipe that houses the propellers and the gearbox. This is how the thruster is supposed to look like. This is my stern thruster, and I already replaced the propellers here with the new type. The old 4-blade propellers are no longer available. You now have to replace them with the 5-blade propellers, as you can see here. And this is how my bow thruster looked like after I tried to swallow a mooring line. I replaced the propellers with my spare propellers, but I noticed that something was wrong with the unit anyway, so I had to take it apart. Okay, this is a quick retractable bow thruster. I think it's the BTR18. And with the bow thruster as well as with my stern thruster, I've got the same problem. Stern thruster I have repaired a couple of years ago, but it's this thing here, which is, well, I think the seals are starting to leak after a couple of years, and then seawater gets in, and basically the whole thing runs like a bucket full of how do you call that, gravel. I need to take it out. On top of the unit you will find these bolts which you have to unscrew, which are nearly impossible to get to. They're hex bolts, so you have to access them from above, and there is really no room for a hex tool to turn. Well, what can I say? Got the thing out. Took me more than an hour. Finally discovered that these things, you know, the ones with the torques on one side and the hex on the other side, are easier to use when maneuvering in very tight spaces. Anyway, I got it out. It's supposed to be oil in there, so let's see what's in there. Okay, this is the stuff that oozes out. Doesn't look too healthy to me. I would say there's definitely water in there, or iron metal scrapings, and I don't know. Doesn't look too good. Okay, so after I took out the gearbox, I noticed that the oil of the gearbox was not very good quality, but the gearbox itself turned flawlessly. So I think just putting in some new seals and checking on the gears would be good for the gearbox, but it was not the culprit. It was not the reason. The gearbox is driven by this shaft here, which in turn is run by the electric motor. And this shaft, look, it's almost impossible to turn. It's almost impossible to turn. It's pretty much jammed up. Supposedly here is a seal. I don't know why this circlip is here. But there's a seal in here, at least there's supposed to be. And there should be a seal somewhere here as well. Anyway, I'm going to have to take it home and take it apart. See why. I guess seawater came in one way or another. But taking this thing out was a bit of an adventure. You pretty much have to start by loosening these things here, and they're mounted solid in place. It's incredibly difficult to get them out, also because of the limited room, the limited space. Anyway, I got them out. Took me the better half of the morning, but I got them out, and I'll take them home and get everything back in order. This part here is the drive shaft of the electric motor, and it runs very smooth. I took the motor off on top, so that I don't have to worry about that. The motor, by the way, looked excellent. There was no water ingress at all, so that all looks good. The problem is definitely not up there, but down here. This is the top of the unit, and I already reassembled it. Sorry about that. But anyway, it looked great. There was no water at all. What's interesting here is that both the positive and the negative cables are double, and I think they're at least 50 square millimeters, but they're doubled up. And it's also 24 volts, so maybe this is a little bit of over-engineering. Why would you double up these cables? It's 4.3 kilowatts, so at 24 volts, that'll be something around 200 amps max, maybe a little less. I think one cable would do it, but anyway, they're double. Okay, this is the same device I took out. By now it's been stripped of its remainder bearings. Bearings were totally rotten, totally gone. Took a lot of work to get the bearings out, especially because they're all the way inside here. The bearings are all the way inside there, two of them, and then there's one more here, and then there's also two seals. Anyway, I'm now trying to clean this, and as you can see, there's a lot of, let's say, growth still on them. I tried to clean them with a steel brush, but that didn't work very well. So now I've got this stuff here. It's acetic acid, 70%. My intention is to dip this in the acetic acid that I have right here, and then use the brush to clean it. And here I've got a bucket full of water to stop the acid reaction. Hopefully I'm not ruining my piece here, and everything works out fine and it comes out clean. So let's try this. In the meantime, while the acid is doing its work, let's look at some of the remnants of what used to be a bearing, a seal, some of the clips that came out. None of this is stainless steel, by the way. It's basically a mess. Most of the bearings we had to drill out or take them out with a tap. It was quite a job to get the old bearings out. We ordered all kinds of new bearings. These bearings are all stainless. The seals do have stainless springs, so that should work, hopefully. It's a lot of parts I have here, and now I also have mostly stainless clips. So hopefully this will make sure the same problem doesn't occur again with this fantastically engineered piece of my bow thruster. Yeah, this, by the way, is not from my bow thruster. That's my anchor winch, my quick DP3 anchor winch, which also was totally jammed up, and all the bearings were also gone, so I have to do that one as well. Well, doesn't look too bad. A lot of elbow grease and a significant amount of acetic acid. Actually around 6 hours worth of soaking in it gave this result, which I'm pretty happy with. This is the seal that goes in. I hope you can read it. It's 12 by 28 by 7 millimeters, that is 12 by 28 by 7 seal with a stainless steel spring. And these are the gearings that go on the axis. And here are the part order numbers of SKF. Okay, well, the philosophy is if there's grease, there cannot be water. So in order to avoid any future problems with saltwater corrosion, even though most of the parts are now stainless, so I don't expect any problems, I still filled this whole tube up with saltwater resistant grease, lithium grease. I pre-assembled the two bearings here, and then this goes into this hole here, pushing the grease all the way out on the other side. Okay, the thing is in. Be sure to hit it all the way home, meaning this thing should be in as deep as possible. Now the two bearings will stop it from going in any further, but you need to push it in far enough so that you can get the end bearing with the clips on this side in place. After that, you have to clean up all the grease, because as you can see, a lot of grease came pouring out. So I'm absolutely sure the whole thing is completely filled with grease. So this is the result with the clip in. It's a very tight clip and there's really not a lot of spare room. But anyway, the clip is in, which holds this axle into place and avoids it moving out on the other side, on this side of the game. So that part is done. Now the only thing that's left is to reinstall or to install the new seal. Now this seal will lock up this here, but since it has space, room on this side, I'm going to fill it up with grease again. It runs very smooth. Last but not least, this clip here has to be put on. This is to avoid the access slips over here to go any further than the clip. There's a key in here, as you can see, and it's not supposed to go any further than this clip. That's the only reason this clip is here. I cannot find another reason. Last thing to do on this side, there's two grooves, and those are for two rubber seals, rubber rings. I don't think these rubber rings really stop anything, but okay, they're here, they're in, and I'll put them in again. All of this is underwater, and I don't think these two rubber rings are really going to stop the water from coming in. Now, for those of you that a little bit got lost on how this all is supposed to work, this part here is connected to the electric engine, which is inside the boat. These are the hinges that make the bow thruster go down and up. In order to move them, there's a electric linear drive that pushes this thing so that it can swivel up and down. On this side is a tube, polyester tube, a big one, 18.5 centimeters diameter, if I'm not mistaken. And then this thing is mounted inside the tube, and that's called the gearbox. As you can see, if I turn this here, that axle turns, and that is then driven by this thing that's we just put together here inside. So I don't have the polyester tube here, it's still at the boat, but if I put this together, it looks something like this. Here it is, all put together, except for the tube, which again goes around here, the tube. So now if I turn this, well, of course there's no key in it, so it will probably not turn. Well, actually it will. Apparently there's enough grease to make it move. So now this thing, it is functioning correctly, but you know, since I have it here anyway, I'm gonna take it apart and clean it and see what the condition of the bearings and seals are inside this thing. This is the gearbox. The way you take apart the gearbox is by taking out the screws. How do you call that? Bolt screws. Here on top. They're hex. There goes one. They're hex and they can be quite tight. So be careful not to ruin them, because then you have to drill them out. The best way I found out to get these lids off is to put them in the bank, in the how do you call this thing? How do you call this thing? And then tighten it, and then you can pretty much take it out. Well, this is the partly disassembled gearbox. As you can see, the whole assembly on one side comes out in one piece. Don't try to move this axle through this seal, because you will ruin the whole bunch. Inside here is a couple of clips that keep the whole thing in place. And now this thing is almost impossible to get off, because it's put in place with some adhesive stuff. So what I did is I heated it up quite a bit, made it red hot, then it came loose, no problem. It took some gentle persuasion, but I got this thing off. Now what's important is that there are two shims between this thing and the bearing that you see here. So be careful not to lose the shims, and also make sure you put the same shims back in the same place. The way to do this, by the way, is after you've removed this thing on the top, you gently hit on this axle and you hit it out. It will then come off quite easily. Okay, so a little recap. This is the axle. I already hit it back. This circlip is mounted inside here. There's a groove in there. This circlip is in there, and that keeps this bearing from moving out. And then this bearing in turn keeps this seal in place. So basically, if you start hitting on it without removing this circlip first, you're in a heap of trouble, and you're probably going to ruin the unit. So here I have a wrench socket which fits neatly on top of the seal. I then hit it. There it is. And now I'm going to put in new seals and partly new bearings. The reason I say partly is because this is one of the old bearings that came out. Now this is, as you can see here, definitely not stainless steel. You see here is rust. So one of the seals actually leaked, and this one already started to rust. So I replaced the outer bearings, so the bearings that are closest to the seals. Those are the ones with the little rust marks. I replace those. So the seals I'm using is 12 20 by 35 by 7. 20 millimeters by 35 millimeters by 7 millimeters Vuitton seal. Now of course remember the seal, always keep the spring on the inside. The spring on the side that you have the oil or the water. But of course in this case this seal both avoids the seawater from coming in as well as the oil from draining out. You put it in like this, seal on the inside. Now putting in the new bearing, it's important to realize that these are not normal bearings. If you can see, there's a big flange here, there's a narrow flange here. This bearing is specifically designed to cope with sideways forces. The purpose of these two bearings is that you mount them in such a way that they can handle the force in both directions. The bow thruster runs in one direction and in the other direction, so it has to cope with forces in both directions. That's why you put them in with the narrow flanges towards each other. Now this is a new one, this is an old one that I may reuse. This is a new one, this one goes in like this, in here. Now I always like to put grease in the bearings. I know this is a oil lubricated gearbox, but I still like to put some grease in the bearing between the balls as much as I can get in between. Basically the same philosophy as I mentioned earlier, where there's no grease, there cannot be, where there's grease, there cannot be any water. So I hope this will follow that rule. Anyway, we'll put them in, the fat flange on the outside of the unit and the narrow flange on the inside. And as you can see, it pushes in very easily. Now important is that you push it far enough so that the clip can get into the groove which is there. And this clip, again as mentioned before, keeps this bearing and this seal in place. So we're going to put in the clip now. I really don't have the right tools for this, so I'm using a slightly modified pair of pliers. But it'll do the job, I hope. Click. It said click. I now put in some grease in the other bearing as well. Now this bearing is an old bearing. That's the bearing that was in here before. There's nothing wrong with this one as far as I can see, no rust. I think this was one of the inner bearings. The rust never made it to here. The water never came in this far. So I think I was just in time taking this unit apart. Push the grease between the balls of the bearing. There you go. Maybe a little bit on the inside here. And again, now this time the big flange is now on this side, the inside of the unit, but the small flanges of the two bearings meet each other. Now remember, there were shims, but the shims are on top of this one. They're not in between the bearings, they're on top of this bearing where the gear is. So maybe I should try to do this very gentle. And make sure it stays as straight as possible. This actually seems to work. Okay, now the rest I'll do with the vise. So it's in. As you can see, 2 bearings, clip in the middle, seal on the outside. So we can put the drive axle, the propeller axle back in. Now the drive axle is actually pretty gross. It's a lot of growth on it. So I'll clean it up first with the steel brush. Well, that did take more than a little persuasion, but I got it in. I'm pretty much reaching the end now. Still needs to go in a little bit further though. So, the whole thing is in now. Here are the shims. 2 of them. This is the key. It goes in here. And then the gearing, or the gear. Well, with a little bit of oil, that slipped in place really nice. Anyway. So I put in some new rubber O-rings. The old ones were still pretty good, but once you take everything apart, this is about the cheapest part that you can replace, so why not do it? Now, of course, the big question is, should I also remove this axle? There's a seal here, and there's a gear there. Now, if you look I don't know if you can see it, but the gear is pressed on. There's not a bolt or anything or a screw that holds this thing in place. It's really pressed on. So in order to get this off, you have to apply pressure here through the oil drain hole. And then maybe you can press it out. I'm pretty convinced that's going to be almost impossible, but anyway. Now it dawned on me that this thing actually slides into this assembly. And this one has 2 rubber O-rings in here. This whole area is covered in Sikaflex, so there's no water ingress from here. Any water ingress has to come, basically through this thing, which is impossible because we just fixed the only way for water to get in here, which is through the sides. And then with the 2 rubber O-rings in here, this thing in here, it'll fit very tightly. And I will also put a lot of grease in here so that no water can get in. So I think it's going to be a lot of work to try to get this axle out. So I'm not going to do that. And this is how the reassembled unit looks like. I put a little Loctite
on these bolts as well. Not too much. Well, you pretty much have to heat this thing up anyway to get these out. So a little Loctite will be okay, I guess. I have to clean this up a little bit more. So this is the repair of the drive shaft and the gearbox of a BTR185. I will not make any videos of putting this thing back on the boat because it may take a couple of months before I get there. And you've already seen how I took it out. The same thing in reverse order is the way to put it in.